night, his daughter fell asleep on the couch with her shoes still on, the television flickering silently in front of her. Jonah Mercer understood something terrifying and true at the same time. Love could be the heaviest thing a human being ever carried. Outside the apartment window, winter rain streaked the glass like quiet tears, and inside, a single lamp cast long shadows across unpaid bills, an empty refrigerator, and a man who had not slept a full night in years. He lifted the child carefully, afraid that even breathing too loudly might wake the fragile peace she had finally found. And in that moment, his entire life felt like it balanced on the steady rhythm of her small chest rising and falling. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of ordinary people, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this deserve to be felt, not just watched. Jonah had never planned to be a single father.
He had planned for weekend barbecues, shared school pickups, and someone to sit beside him during the long stretches of life when nothing exciting happened. Instead, he learned how to braid hair while watching online videos late at night, how to stretch groceries to last until the end of the week, and how to smile even when exhaustion pressed so hard on his chest it felt like breathing through water. His daughter, Mira, was 7 years old, small for her age, with eyes that seemed to see far more than a child should. She rarely asked for things anymore, not because she did not want them, but because she had learned too early the cost of wanting. Their apartment in a quiet Ohio town was clean but worn, the kind of place where the floor creaked in familiar ways, and the heater rattled like it was always on the verge of giving up. Jonah worked 2 jobs, one during the day at a warehouse where the air smelled of cardboard and oil, and another at night, stocking shelves under fluorescent lights that made every hour feel longer than the last.
He measured his life in shifts and paychecks, in school lunches packed with care, and in the way Mira's shoulders relaxed when she knew he was home, even if home meant sitting together in silence, too tired to speak. Some nights were harder than others. There were evenings when Jonah would sit on the edge of his bed, shoes still on, staring at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. He wondered if he was failing her, if love alone was enough when the world demanded so much more. He wondered if she would grow up resenting the life he could give her instead of the one she deserved. Those thoughts never lasted long, though, because Mira had a way of grounding him without even trying. She would leave small drawings on the kitchen counter, pictures of stick figures holding hands beneath a sun that smiled too brightly, and Jonah would feel something in his chest loosen, just enough to keep going. The school year brought its own challenges. Notices came home in neatly folded papers, reminders of field trips, book fairs, and events that required money Jonah did not have.
He learned to read those pages carefully, calculating what could be managed and what would have to be quietly skipped. Mira never complained. She learned to say it was fine, learned to nod and smile, learned to be brave in ways that broke her father's heart. On parent-teacher night, Jonah stood in the hallway surrounded by couples and grandparents, feeling invisible and exposed all at once, carrying the weight of being everything for someone who deserved the world. Winter tightened its grip, and with it came the unexpected. A cut in hours at the warehouse meant fewer paychecks, and fewer paychecks meant choices no parent should have to make. Jonah skipped meals without telling Mira, telling himself it was temporary, telling himself he was strong enough to handle it. He wrapped her tighter in scarves and coats, walked her to school through icy mornings, and waved until she disappeared through the doors. Only then did he allow his face to fall, the exhaustion showing through the cracks of determination. One evening,
as snow piled against the curb and the city lights blurred behind falling flakes. Jonah found a letter slipped under the apartment door. It was a notice, polite but firm, about overdue rent. He sat at the kitchen table long after Mira had gone to bed, the paper spread out before him like a verdict. He did not cry. He simply breathed, slowly and carefully, as if holding himself together was a task that required focus. He thought of packing boxes, of finding somewhere cheaper, of uprooting the small sense of stability he had worked so hard to build. And still, the next morning, he woke Mira with a gentle touch and a smile, making pancakes from a mix stretched thin with water, pretending everything was exactly as it should be. What Jonah did not know was how closely he was being watched, not by fate or luck, but by people who noticed the quiet ones.
A neighbor down the hall, an older woman with kind eyes and a habit of leaving her door open, had seen Jonah's routine, the way he carried his daughter's backpack when she fell asleep on the walk home, the way he held the door for everyone else before himself. A teacher had noticed Mira's worn shoes and her remarkable focus, how she stayed late to help clean up without being asked. Small observations made by ordinary people began to connect in ways Jonah never expected. The first sign of change was subtle. An envelope appeared in his mailbox with no return address, containing a grocery store gift card and a short note written in careful handwriting, reminding him that he was not alone. Jonah stood in the hallway holding that card like it might vanish if he blinked. He felt something unfamiliar rise in his chest, not relief, but the painful sweetness of being seen. He used the card to buy fresh fruit, Mira's favorite cereal, and a small treat he had not been able to afford in months.
That night, as she laughed over a simple dessert, Jonah felt the quiet shift of something heavy beginning to lift. More moments followed. Extra hours returned at work. The landlord agreed to a payment plan after an unexpected conversation that felt less like negotiation and more like understanding. Mira came home one day carrying a backpack that was not her own, donated quietly through the school, filled with supplies she needed, and a note praising her kindness and resilience. Jonah read that note again and again, each word landing like a reminder that even in their hardest days, goodness had not passed them by. Spring arrived slowly, melting the snow and revealing the worn sidewalks beneath, familiar and flawed, but still standing. Jonah took Mira to the park on his rare day off, watching her run beneath trees just beginning to bloom. He realized how long it had been since he allowed himself to imagine a future that was not just about survival. Sitting on a cold bench, he let the sun warm his face and felt, for the first time in years, a cautious sense of hope. It was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet, like the steady promise of morning after a long night. Life did not suddenly become easy. There were still bills, still long shifts, still moments when exhaustion pressed close. But there was also something new, something stronger than fear. Jonah had learned that asking for help was not weakness, that love could move through communities in invisible ways, and that his daughter was growing up not in spite of hardship, but with a compassion shaped by it. Mira learned that her father was human, that strength could look like persistence, and that even the smallest kindness could echo far beyond its moment. As time passed, Jonah found himself standing a little taller, smiling a little more freely. He volunteered at school events when he could, helped neighbors carry groceries, and paid forward the kindness he had received in ways that felt right. He never forgot the nights of worry, the weight of responsibility, or the fear of failing the person he loved most. Those memories did not disappear.
They became part of him, shaping a man who understood the value of showing up day after day, even when no one was watching. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you of the quiet heroes around us, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who might need encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that matter. And before this story ends, leave a comment telling us where you are watching from and who this story made you think of. On a warm evening, months later, Jonah watched Mira fall asleep on the same couch, this time wrapped in a blanket she loved, her face peaceful and unburdened. The television hummed softly, the apartment still modest, but filled with something richer than comfort. Jonah sat nearby, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing, understanding that his story was not about loss or struggle alone. It was about endurance, about love that refused to give up, and about the invisible threads that connect us when we choose to care. And in that quiet room, with the world finally feeling a little lighter, Jonah knew that even broken hearts could become places where hope learned to live.